Trump pushes Harvard and other universities to pay millions for anti-Semitism settlements. America's most prestigious universities are now facing a financial reckoning that could reshape higher education as we know it. The Trump administration is turning up the heat on Harvard and other elite institutions, demanding they pay hefty sums to the federal government to resolve allegations of anti-Semitism on their campuses. And this is the part most people miss. The government isn't just asking for apologies or policy changes. It's seeking millions of dollars in settlements following the dramatic $200 million deal just struck with Columbia University. But here's where it gets controversial. The White House isn't stopping with Columbia. According to a senior administration official, similar demands are being made of the University of Michigan, Northwestern, Cornell, and Brown, with the expectation that many more schools could soon be in the crosshairs. In fact, dozens of colleges and universities, some already under investigation, others warn they could be next, are now bracing for what could be a sweeping financial crackdown. Let's break down what happened at Columbia, since it's now the model for these negotiations. After months of tense talks, Columbia agreed to pay over $200 million to settle federal claims that it failed to address anti-Semitism and engaged in discriminatory hiring practices. The agreement also requires Columbia to accept oversight from an independent monitor and to pay $21 million directly to Jewish faculty and staff who reported harassment or discrimination. In exchange, the government agreed to release more than $1 billion in previously frozen federal funding, which Columbia's acting president, Claire Shipman, admitted was threatening the university's ability to continue key research projects. And this is the part that could spark debate. The administration is framing these payments as settlements, not penalties, and insists that each university involved has either been sued or is facing a potential investigation. The message is clear. If schools want continued access to federal funds, they'll need to reach agreements similar to Columbia's. While the administration says these deals aren't cookie-cutter, the Columbia agreement is being held up as a blueprint for what's expected from other institutions. The roots of this crackdown go back to the 2023-24 academic year, when Columbia became the epicenter of pro-Palestinian protests over the Israel-Gaza conflict. The Department of Education later revealed that Harvard, Michigan, Northwestern, Brown, and Cornell are among 60 universities under investigation for alleged anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment in the wake of those protests. Notably, spokespeople for several of these schools have either declined to comment or not responded at all, highlighting the sensitivity and perhaps the legal complexity of the situation. Harvard, for its part, is fighting back. The university has filed a lawsuit against the federal government, arguing that withholding federal grants to force institutional changes is both illegal and unconstitutional. This legal battle could set a precedent for how much power the government has to shape university policies through financial leverage. It's worth noting that Columbia's settlement follows a similar agreement reached earlier this month between the Trump administration and the University of Pennsylvania. In that case, the administration had frozen $175 million in funding over Penn's policy allowing transgender women to compete on female sports teams, a policy that at the time matched NCAA guidelines. Penn ultimately agreed to change its policy and send apology letters to affected athletes, after which the government restored the funding. A lobbyist close to the administration, speaking anonymously, described the Columbia deal as just the beginning. He suggested that the administration plans to intensify civil rights investigations on campuses, using even a handful of complaints as leverage to pressure universities into settlements. The implication? Schools may soon face a stark choice, undergo a potentially damaging public investigation, or quietly agree to a costly settlement. This aggressive approach is sure to ignite debate. Is the government right to use financial pressure to force universities to address anti-Semitism? Or is this an overreach that threatens academic independence? Should universities be held financially responsible for campus climate issues? Or does this set a dangerous precedent? We want to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with the administration's tactics, or do you see this as an attack on higher education? Share your perspective in the comments below. This is a conversation that's only just beginning. Will Harvard follow Columbia's settlement path? Academic freedom and federal funding. Harvard at a crossroads. Will it follow Columbia's lead or forge its own path? But here's where it gets controversial. Harvard's refusal to adopt Columbia's settlement blueprint could spark a nationwide debate about the balance between institutional independence and federal oversight in academia. And this is the part most people miss. While both universities face pressure from the Trump administration, their strategies and financial realities couldn't be more different. Let's break this down. Columbia University recently struck a 22-page deal with the federal government, agreeing to pay $200 million over 3 years and $21 million to address alleged civil rights violations against Jewish employees. In return, it regained access to billions in frozen federal funds. The agreement also mandates an independent monitor to ensure compliance with new policies, including changes to disciplinary procedures and a controversial definition of antisemitism. Crucially, Columbia avoided admitting wrongdoing and defended its academic freedom, stating the deal wouldn't let the government dictate hiring, admissions, or speech. Harvard, however, has taken a harder stance. Despite adopting some of Columbia's reforms, Harvard's supporters argue the university shouldn't comply with demands to report student data to agencies like the Department of Homeland Security. Professor Stephen Levitsky, a Harvard expert in government, warned that backtracking now would be very, very costly for the institution's reputation and autonomy. After months of legal and PR battles, Harvard's leadership insists it will not yield to political pressure. The stakes are sky high. Columbia's agreement aligns with Trump-era policies targeting diversity initiatives in higher education, such as banning transgender athletes from women's sports and eliminating race-based admissions. Harvard, meanwhile, boasts a $53 billion endowment, nearly 4 times Columbia's, and has secured legal victories that bolster its defiance. Yet the Trump administration's relentless attacks, including funding freezes and visa program investigations, are escalating costs. Harvard's president, Alan Garber, recently warned that new federal taxes could slash the school's revenue by $1 billion annually. But here's the catch. Columbia's settlement includes provisions that Harvard's allies find alarming. For instance, it requires reporting arrests of international students and submitting demographic admissions data. The Trump administration had similarly demanded such information from Harvard, which rejected the request, prompting threats to revoke its international student visa privileges. Evelyn Kim of Queens and Courage, a Harvard alumni group, called these tactics existential threats to academic freedom, arguing universities should decide their own missions without federal strings. On the flip side, reform advocates see Columbia's deal as a template for Harvard. Former Harvard President Lawrence Summers praised the agreement as a template for other institutions, calling it the best day for higher education in a year. However, critics like Adam Kissel of the Heritage Foundation framed Columbia's $200 million payout as a warning to Harvard: comply or face financial ruin. The question remains, will Harvard prioritize independence, risking long-term funding, or follow Columbia's path to secure its future? What do you think Harvard should do next? Share your thoughts below.